Alright, it looks as if we're live. YouTube does that thing though where it's not sure for a second there. Yep, apparently we are live. Hello everyone! Now, this is a impromptu, well, that's the wrong word. Kind of a random stream. Alright, so Jackson is first in the chat. How you doing, man? Hey, how you guys doing? I'm doing pretty good. How about you, Arch? Ludus?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
And I'm just glad to finally be fully fucking healed.
Hey,
I don't think you know this, Arch, but I actually had surgery about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago.
I think I heard something about it, but no details.
It was essentially a kidney stone removal, and I have never been in that much pain in my life.
Kidney stones are nasty.
They are. They
so
suck.
glad I haven't had one yet.
If you haven't had one in 10 years, I will plant one in you.
What?
Just to share the misery.
Note to self, avoid Ludus at all costs.
Well, it's only in a decade. I mean, I have time.
That's nice. Alright, so let's see. AR Hail Brothers, Ace 1918. Glad to hear Ludus is getting better. Yeah, so am I. Captain UFO, good day, lads. Good day, Captain UFO. Alright. So, you guys want to just jump right on into the conversation?
Sure, why not?
Yeah, it's just a casual one. It's not too structured. I literally just have like bullet points. Ludus, Arch, if you guys want to bring anything up at any point, just feel free. Just kind of doing it loosey-goosey. Don't want to be too stringent or stiff about it. But I guess we could start with discussing the recent Astartes and other fan animations, including the Exodite, animation and fan animation being picked up by GW. Now, who wants to go first on this one?
I think Arch should go first because he is definitely more knowledgeable than I am.
Well, the way I see it is that this is a bit of a mixed blessing in many cases. Having people with actual passion and interest for the setting in GW is something that they absolutely need right now, since they seem to be forgetting more and more of it, honestly. On the other hand, I also can't help but see this as a company basically cooing the competition in a way and establishing almost a monopoly on fan animations. And normally I wouldn't be quite so cynical, but with them hiring a Hasbro executive literally to start their mainstream market strategy of 40k, it seems like, if anything, being too cynical is not going to be the problem. Not being cynical enough, though, will be worse.
Yeah, when I initially covered the news, I was actually a little bit more optimistic, which, by the way, the comments butchered me about that. Because I was too positive, and people took side statements and went a little far with it. Like, for example, I said that I couldn't see how GW could possibly fuck this up. Keep in mind, this is before I read everything about for like you just brought up the Hasbro guy being brought in, and I also hadn't at that point I hadn't seen anything about like the Exodite and the other fan animations come out, so it was just Astartes. So covering that, I was mostly looking at it from the positive perspective. Like I felt really good for the guy behind it. The guy behind it, for like, I'm imagining it was probably a dream of his to work directly with GW and talk about portfolios to put if he wants to do other stuff in the future. This is going to be a really big one on his portfolio of work. So I was pretty positive about it, but people roasted me. Like, people took statements, like I said, like me just saying offhandedly, I can't see how they would fuck this up. They took that, and some people in the comments were like, oh, you poor naive child, you can't possibly at all believe. Like, it went from I can't see how to I couldn't believe they could fuck it up. I didn't say that. I 100% believe GW can fuck it up. This is GW we're talking about. They are the masters at coming up with half-decent ideas, and then in terms of execution, performing them in the most butchered, horrible ways possible. So I 100% could see them fucking it up.
So, and this is completely unintentional, but I'm kind of in between on this one because I do really have the cynical viewpoint of GW can probably fuck this up somehow, but I am also a bit optimistic because Astartes was, for someone doing it essentially on their own, was really, really high quality. So at least they picked someone with high quality. Now, here's where I kind of come in the middle. I'm optimistic for the guy, and if GW can let him do his own thing, like maybe even give him a small team and let him do his own thing and just like kind of fuck off. Like come in and double check, like, hey, how you doing? You know, let's see what you got. If it's still going, you know, if this is at least not too far out there, stuff like that. But as long as they have a mostly hands-off relationship with it, it could go really well. Do I think that's going to happen? Probably not.
No, it's GW. They don't do hands off.
Like I said, that's just if they do hands off, this could really, really be good for not just GW, but I really do believe that, especially like Astartes itself going massively popular, that alone could be good for 40k because it's showing someone with passion for 40k. And if you could get people like that, because I remember I actually just watched this last night, Arch's Gatekeeping video they just released. You know, I did a lot of thinking about that because my stance on it is kind of like, you know, everyone should be welcome, but don't try and change it. Very similarly to Arch said, don't try and change it for like real world bullshit. Try and change what doesn't make sense in universe.
And yeah, I think yeah, like with the Arch's video, which I can bring up. But with that, I also had a similar kind of thought process to you. The way I worded it in my own head, I didn't make a video about it, but the way I worded it in my own head was more along the lines of everyone is welcome to come, and the thing is, everyone is open to innovation, to the hobby being added to the lore being added to the universe as a whole being added to, whether it's tabletop, lore, books. We all want more. What we don't want is aggressive going back in time to the things that we've loved for years and years through the books of the Horus Heresy and others, and then having that changed and rewritten and written over, like almost being redacted in new stuff, almost eliminating what we once loved. So for me, it's the argument between innovation and unnecessary change.
Yeah, and I think, but there is a place for that in 40k. There's a place for that in any real sci-fi universe, and that's called homebrews. It's not canon, but you can literally have whatever you want in the universe.
That is a potential thing, though homebrews as well, I think we're going to be seeing be discouraged quite a lot, because here's the thing as well. If Astartes were allowed to simply just do whatever he wanted to do with his passion and genuine, clear love for the setting and undeniable talent, I would not be particularly worried by this either. I would see this as a purely good thing. But I also know what happens when executives start getting into power over things like this, and they are going to demand changes, I think, almost immediately. And those changes will be very much so the focus-tested kind of changes. And that's why I made the gatekeeping video as well, because the thing is, there is such a thing as Warhammer 40k. It's something we can identify as being 40k, and there are things that are not 40k. And a Hasbro executive is not going to know the difference between the two. I think he's going to introduce focus testing, go like, okay, well, you know, this Astartes thing, this is cool and all, but why is he fighting these people with the masks? We don't make these. We don't sell these. You should change this out with something we do sell, etc., etc.
I will say it would be cool. Like, this is just kind of a side note I just thought of. But like a 40k Transformers, if they keep it to the lore
God.
crossover, where the Transformers just get fucking stomped, would be hilarious.
I mean, unironically, that's the terrain we're entering into here with Hasbro. Ridiculous crossovers that makes absolutely no sense just because. I mean, we've had Batman in Predator and all kinds of insane nonsense like this.
It's Marnius, not Calgar, teaming up with Optimus Prime, and how can we save this kid's day? Oh my god.
Kinda, yeah.
I can see that. Like, that's the thing. Like, that's so depressing. Because the thing is, a couple years ago, I don't think any of us. Well, I won't speak for you guys. I don't think I would have foreseen 40k going the way that it has. Not but like 3-4 years ago. Like, I would never have believed, even remotely, that something like, well, for what you use, Transformers and 40k doing a crossover. I also didn't think that Warhammer Adventures was ever going to be a thing. Like, child-friendly books for 40k. Like, these are things I would have completely written off as just buffoonery and a meme, maybe a joke, but nothing more than that. And now that we've been in this downward slope in a lot of ways, that is not only is something as crazy as 40k doing a crossover with something like Transformers, like, in my mind, possible. I'm kind of scared they're actually doing like storyboards for it right now or something.
It's no longer possible, it's now likely.
Oh god.
And that's the thing too that people need to understand is these companies move glacially slowly. Everything is in the work for years and years. The fact that they have now hired a Hasbro executive, and bearing in mind too, this is like the top guy here. They have formed an entire new department around him, essentially. This guy came at a king's ransom, and you can bet yourself as well that this was a part of a long-term discussion. You don't just hire someone like this used to $1 million salary, etc. This is probably a beginning of a collaboration between Games Workshop and these various companies, which is why we've seen like 40k pop funks and Marvel and such other mainstream cancerous garbage.
I think a good potential that would come out of this is I don't know if either one of you have actually watched it, but the Witcher Netflix series.
I've watched it. I can't say to... My opinion on it's still kind of fluctuating, because there's aspects about that series I really liked, but in hindsight, there's also certain things I gotta be like, I didn't like that so much.
Okay. I think, but honestly, for like a TV adaptation, that was one of the better ones by fucking leaps and bounds, though.
Definitely.
It was.
So, and what I was kind of thinking about is, because I remember Arch talking about this a long while ago, is the Eisenhorn TV series becoming a thing. If they would have started with that and gone the way of The Witcher, where it did stay kind of true to the lore for most intents and purposes, that would have been a really good way to introduce 40k to the mainstream. If they would have started there.
The thing is, when it comes to introducing 40k to the mainstream, which I stand by, I don't think 40k should ever become part of the mainstream, and the fact that it's kind of going that route, like, I don't know about you guys, I never have thought about 40k being a mainstream thing as good, because pretty much everything I could think of that's mainstream, everything that was once niche, like comic books and comic stories and superhero stories, and then once that became like big time film franchises and stuff like that, I honestly, like, when I think about things going mainstream, I kind of have that as synonymous with basically it becoming over-censored, made child-friendly. Typically, whatever made it unique is also going to be... it's either going to be replicated so much that it gets repetitive and boring, or it's going to be... I think this is the wrong word. Homogenized? Yeah, I think that's the wrong word.
Yeah.
But
to an extent, it's correct. Like, it's sanding down the rough edges, making it more palatable to a common audience. And at the end of the day, that means making it less interesting. Because interesting things is, by definition, something unusual, something that leaps out at you. And it's almost universally something with niche appeal. When you take 40k, whose niche appeal is very clear in that it's a grimdark universe of murder, slaughter, and mayhem, where the Imperium is a bunch of xenophobic crazies that breed religious mass-murdering super soldiers, a lot of that is going to need a lot of sandpapering before it becomes palatable to the masses, and that is why we now have adventures, which is exactly that sandpapering in action.
Oh, God.
I really wish that was not the easiest way to describe the Imperium. Which I also want to go out there and say the Imperium is actually probably one of my like middling factions. They're not bad, but they're not good. But that is absolutely the best way I've ever heard to describe them.
Oh, real quick, we got a super chat from Ace earlier. Marvel's Marnius Cringegar meets She-Hulk win?
Well, when
get
will
ready.
Tacticus fight in the Marvel Universe?
Oh, yeah. The thing is, when me and Ace and another fan and YouTuber, aspiring YouTuber, Xeris, were actually reading through those comics on Ace's streams, and my fucking god, it was misery. I thought, the thing is, I could not stop ranting about the fact that Calgar abandoned a defensible fortress to capture essentially a chaos-corrupted tractor, completely emptying out the fortress, just to attack it himself.
By ramming a tank through the wall.
Yeah, the thing is, at the end of the comic where he revealed that, I abandoned it intentionally, I was like, okay, so he sabotaged it, he set a bomb, maybe they're gonna drop down orbital, I don't know, some kind of orbital strike, something. No, next issue, it literally opens with him running through a fucking wall with a tank. And no sign that they sabotaged the place. I'm still baffled at the complete and utter lack of strategy. Every Imperial Fist and Iron Warriors player has simultaneously face-palmed so fucking hard. I cannot get over that. That was the dumbest shit I've ever seen.
I will say one of the best parts about this is there is actually a group I could see doing that. And they are loyal, and it's not the fucking Ultramarines, but I could see White Scars doing that shit. But they wouldn't ram a tank through the wall. No, they would leave and then like come back in the dead of night and then fuck everyone up and be done with it. But like I still don't get the ramming the tank through the wall, because if I'm not mistaken in Arch, please correct me if I'm wrong, they should not be able to do that.
They should not be able to do that, but hey, minor details.
Because if I remember right, their walls are like really ridiculously strong.
Ferrocrete, it helped. Even basic reinforced concrete. A tank does not go through reinforced concrete. It doesn't happen. The rebars would stop it. And again, it's like it's dislike for the universe. They don't know what the tank is. They don't know what the fortification is, and they're just like, wouldn't it be cool if Tacticus rode a tank through a fucking wall? Like, never mind the fact that elementary physics would see the wall then collapse on top of Tacticus riding on the tank, but hey, details.
Well, the thing I was thinking was, because I remember this from the from your very first Siege of Rex video, talking about Colonel Yurton dropping nukes essentially on all of Rex, and how a hive city can survive that. And my logic was, even if it's not necessarily built, a fortification will probably be built better than a hive city's inner walls. So if hive city walls can survive a nuke, a tank will not go through fortification walls. And I'm just like, nuke beats tank, but tank beats wall. That doesn't make sense. My head hurt.
The sense.
Oh, yeah. Because it wasn't designed to make sense. It's a Marvel fucking comic.
Oh, yeah. I thought I knew the the Calgar comic was going to suck, but I could not have predicted.
I don't think anyone could have predicted that they would kill Manus Calgar in his own fucking comic.
Killed him, and then, oh my god, all the stupid. Literally, the plot makes no sense.
Manus Calgar discovers a Chaos Altar as a child, then forgets all about the Chaos Altar, including the Space Marines who rescued him for the next 200 or so years, and then comes back to it later and goes, "Oh shit, this was still here. Fuck."
Yes, because the Imperium would totally leave a chaos corrupted location unnuked.
I will say, and this is only because the only legion I hate worse than the Ultramarines is the Word Bearers, but because they're the Ultramarines, I can see that level of stupid.
What just annoys me is the fact that he knew it was there. He looks at the screen and goes like, "Oh shit, is this where it is? Oh my god, this is where I forgot that Chaos ship fucking 200 years ago." Like, okay, so you just left it. You just left it there. Why? Well, was this part of your plan? Perhaps. Ah, yes. 200 years in the future, I'll need this as a distraction.
Jackson said hashtag Zinch was here.
Pretty much.
And that's an explanation I could buy, and that's about the only one I could.
And it's only because cool. It's only because it looks cool in a comic, and that's the only reason why. There's why you also have the his other training partner, the ones that turn to chaos, turn into a two-headed monster. Never mind the fact that he should have died of old age a few centuries ago.
Yeah, and also the fact that those two who had mutated together into a two-headed monster somehow were leading Chaos Space Marines.
Yep.
Like, how did
mere mutant, not even a Chaos Space Marine, not even particularly blessed.
I know, that's the thing. Like, me, Ace, and Xeris were talking about that for a good 30 minutes. Just just the concept. It just the complete for me that in itself is amongst so many other things in that comic. But for me, that is a very good pinpoint. If I needed a perfect example to show people that those who not only wrote that comic but also drew everything in it had absolutely zero interest, knowledge, or care for 40k.
For me, that example would be the Ultramarines recruiting practices, which is now apparently turned into some kind of retarded boot camp where the Ultramarines themselves oversee the training process.
Yeah, I was less familiar with the Ultramarines' specific training, so when we were reading that part of the comic, I had to recuse myself on that one because I wasn't familiar with their specific practices when it came to that. I didn't really think of that as a good example.
Don't
I didn't
worry.
know if it was accurate.
Neither did the Marvel writers hired to make the story. Stand in good company.
Yay. Feels great. We just got 2 super chats. Ace1918 says, "Who would win, Calgar or Attractor's off switch?" Well, apparently, the off switch.
The off switch. We have resolved this question in official lore.
And Ball says, "40k plus mainstream equals more toxic people calling themselves fans who don't have respect for lore or other people." I'd agree.
I don't 100% agree with that. I think there would be cases of it, but I do think it would bring more people to be true fans. I think that is a...
I have actually come to believe that this might be a fallacy of sorts, because I read another article I was planning to bring up in a video a little while ago about Final Fantasy. Now, I, like many people's, only real knowledge about Final Fantasy pertains to Tifa's ample bosom. But I do know that it's a story-rich RPG, and they're now turning it into a battle royale game, which is ridiculous. And the very reasoning is, oh yes, this is to find a wider market so we can bring more people into the deeper lore of our setting. And I'm thinking to myself, let's say that you do get more people, right? Are the Battle Royale crowd then going to go like, oh yes, I'd like to delve deeper into the lore of my looter-shooter nonsense thing? Or are they just going to ignore it?
Majority will ignore it, I'd say.
I think it'll bring in a lot of people who will not just ignore it, but will also try to use it for their own purposes because they have no ownership of it. They have no relationship to it. They'll go in and they'll be like, okay, I like this particular aspect. I like this as a battle royale. Now you get to change the story to better suit my sensibilities around this. And in 40k, there's a lot to change to suit modern sensibilities. We've already seen it be a target of political pressure, and we've seen GW bend to it immediately.
Oh yeah,
that I think will just get worse.
I'd have to agree there. Especially with how society is as a whole around the world, really, with the politicization and a lot of pseudo social justice movements and stuff like that, continuing to encroach upon hobbies. And I think everyone uses examples, so this isn't anything new, but look at Star Wars. And I think a lot of 40k fans are afraid that our hobby is going to go that way, especially if it goes more mainstream.
Star Wars is an excellent example simply because it's something that everybody knows about, and it is an incontroversial example as well. It is... And it's not an example merely of just a lack of care for the universe either. It's an example of outright disgust for the universe.
I would definitely agree.
And that's also kind of where again, going back to Arch's gatekeeping video, I 100% agree. We need people that care about it to be able to handle it. Because, and this is potentially an optimistic and albeit kind of blind view, but I believe having new fans who do have something honest to contribute to it does make a universe better. But you do have those people who come in just to change it for whatever reason, be it for political reasons, for social justice reasons, whatever, who don't really give a shit about the universe. All they care about is making themselves feel better and have that sense of power. So it comes down to I don't think going mainstream would be completely negative, and I do think the pros outweigh the cons in the sense if the people who do care about the universe can stick together and say, if you have something to change in the universe that makes sense, then sure, why not? Like, if I remember Arch's example, it was the mirror cracked or the mirror shattered that fucks up Fulgrim's story. Like, that would make sense, just make, all you have to do is make one simple decision. Make that book non-canonical. It can still be there for the people that enjoy it, but it leaves the Fulgrim story a bit open-ended. Which, that would be really cool. Even if you still go along lines of Fulgrim being the demon Primarch being the real Fulgrim, if you go down that line, you still have the clone Fulgrim that is now essentially a museum exhibit of the Necrons, but you have an out there to have him be rescued by the Imperium and have a loyal Fulgrim that way. So there is a bit of an out, not a good one, but that is a really good opportunity there. And it's kind of like, if you have people that go down that line, that like, hey, here's an opportunity to make the universe more rich, or here's something that would make sense in the universe that people might like, as opposed to, I'm going to have these Ultramarines who act more like fucking world eaters than anything. By the way, that I really do think, going through Arch's Horus Heresy reviews again, I do think they were world eaters in Ultramarine armor.
I just want to say the stream has turned into quite the great advertisement for Arch's videos.
Arch's channel, yeah. Well, in addition to looking up the lore on my own,
check out Arch's channel. Here's a very long, extenuated list of his videos.
But it's one of those examples where, it just didn't make sense for Ultramarines to just massacre a fucking city. So, going back to that, it's like, that didn't make sense. So, it's kind of a little too late because of the way the lore worked to honestly change that in any massive way. But the Fulgrim thing is something that can be fixed. It's in universe. But saying, can we make the World Eaters, instead of using chain axes, can they use big daisy chains because they seem like the friendliest of screamers? Like, no, that doesn't make sense. But it will protect my sensibilities. Well, fuck your sensibilities. No, that doesn't make sense.
Real quick, I want to get this super chat. Adam Wolford says, "My worry is GW will water down the lore for normal people, lighten up the grim darkness of it, and of course they will focus on the Ultramarines and not gave, I assume that it was meant to be give, any other chapters and factions. Also, hi Arch."
Hello.
Yeah, we kind of touched on that a little bit at the beginning, and just touch on it again. Yeah, I would say I definitely agree. We already have the latter problem with Ultramarines being turned into like the main characters in the primary chapter, and I have always found that annoying. I have a particular hatred, more so than most people, for the Ultramarines. So, plus the color Ultramarine and the color of their armor, that's my least favorite color, like that kind of blue. So just on an aesthetic level, they're my least favorite.
I will say I did talk to someone who really who does like the Ultramarines. They are his favorite faction, and he actually had a decent reason for it. So it's not that they aren't out there, and there aren't people that don't have decent reasons.
The thing is, I'm not saying like if you're an Ultramarines fan, you're stupid, you're idiotic, or anything like that. Or I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is I hate them in particular, and whether you're a fan or not, your reasons are your own, and they're valid for you. That's perfectly fine. That's the whole point of an opinion. But the thing is, my problem is I think Ultramarine players have to admit this as well. They've become the main character of the universe, as well as Space Marines as a whole, when there's so many other chapters of Space Marines, there's so many other Xenos races, there's so much other things that GW has this gold mine to tap into, to release new model sets for the tabletop, release new books from Black Library. Not that, with the quality of writing lately, we want more, but there's so much there that they could do that they're just doing this massive disservice to the community and to themselves by not tapping into, solely because Space Marines have always sold so well. Well, the reason for that is you put so much time and effort into selling just them and advertising the universe with just them, that no duh they're going to sell the most, because they're the first thing everybody sees. So almost everybody has a Space Marine army at some point.
Well, and the reason I said that, and Arch, please correct me if I'm wrong, but all three of us share, if not the exact same, but a similar opinion, is that the 40k universe is oversaturated with the fucking blueberries. And that they are the poster boys, and they are, like, the camera is shoved up their ass. So,
all the time.
Yeah. And that's why I was just making that defense for the Ultramarines, is because there are people that do like them for legitimate reasons, just like all three of us tend to agree that they're a bit oversaturated.
They absolutely are oversaturated. And that is, again, because they are the commonly used ones. Though, of course, now we have perhaps an even bigger issue with the fact that the Space Marines themselves also have gotten way too much attention. And that'll just transform over to the Primarchs now. That's another thing, too. How much do you want to bet that the next Astartes video will feature Primarchs Marines?
That's not even a question. I absolutely predict that. I'm going to bet.
Well, there already goes a little bit of the individuality, and that's true. This is a point I kind of forgot to mention, actually, but the argument for the acquisition of the Astartes being a good thing primarily rests on the idea that Games Workshop won't interfere with his creative process, right? Except, of course, when they took it down and put it up on their website, they already changed the music, and they also fucked with the sound as well. Like, they've already engaged in changing this.
And as far as changing like the sound and music, I mean, when I said they don't change, because if I'm not mistaken, they didn't take anything out of the actual animations, though, did they?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, they have not.
Okay.
I think to circle back all the way back to the the Astartes stuff in particular. How did you guys? Because I know how I felt about it, especially considering now. Because after that, I found out about a lot of the extra details after I already put up my video about Astartes being mainstream and making my video pretty much dated instantly. I don't know how you guys felt about this, but the Astartes being A, taken down from YouTube, B, being put up on the Warhammer community page, which I don't think most people knew about until this happened, and being put up in only 720p.
That is a fucking crime, in fact.
It is 100%.
Mayhaps.
It was the worst detail. Like, after that happened, I wish I was tempted to take down the video, record a new one, just saying, fuck GW. Because the thing is, I get them... Well, I don't get them taken down from YouTube. I get that they put it up on the community page, though, as now, and then going forward, putting the other fan stuff on their community page as a way to kind of get people to go over there and traffic over there. But what I don't understand is, with the videos that have been on YouTube, with the videos from Astartes that have been there for so long, have accumulated millions of views, why is it that those were not left there on YouTube in max quality when they upload it to their shitty website at such a lower quality? Like, I'm genuinely trying to understand the decision process there. It's one thing to take it off YouTube and put it on a platform where the quality is going to stay the same and where basically the only difference is people got to just change the URL, like where they go to watch it. That's fine. But if you know your website can't handle max quality of this amazing animation, why the fuck did you take it off YouTube? Like, for me, like, that's it sounds so small when you just say it, but it feels like a really large oversight to me. That's just, I guess at this point it's par for the course for GW, but I'm kind of left speechless to a degree about it.
The thing is, it's just another sign of the fact that they are starting to forget about the passion they presumably once had for the setting. And now it is about maximizing exposure, maximizing profit. And they're thinking to themselves, this is the Hasbro executive mindset here. We have something really, really popular. We should take it hostage and place it somewhere where people will be forced to watch our product, our plastic as well, which will be our main site. And the passionate voice, which then might be raised in objection, but hold on. First and foremost, we can't do it justice. It'll be shit quality. Secondly, our website is awful and won't work for a bunch of people. I was sent tons of screenshots of people. It's like, oh, it doesn't work because it doesn't work on certain browsers. And we'll have to change the music. Way less people will see it. And bear in mind, too, the next Astartes will not be as successful as the previous ones simply because no one will fucking know it exists. And they did that because now this isn't about the passion anymore. This is now about maximizing exposure, maximizing their corporate benefit. And that is the beauty of mainstream.
Yay. All right, real quick, I'm gonna just because we got a series of super chats. Just want to go through them real quick. Unless Ludus, you want to say something immediately in response to that.
Well, it was I did have a response to something in the chat, but you go ahead with the super chats and then I'll hit up on that.
So first one is a super chat done directly through Streamlabs. Thank you very much for that, by the way. How long before Disney buys 40k, decanonizes the books, and reinvents Fulgrim, a heroic Disney princess fighting her tyrannical father and his evil empire?
Well, you jest, but Disney's bought everything else of value.
I'm at this point, I'm just waiting for that to happen. And every day that goes by is a day I'm like, huh, they're taking their time, aren't they? Captain Caboose for $5 says, no, in all caps, no quarter, do not let them have this. Gatekeep, keep them out at all costs. They don't like 40k, then have no care for 40k. Keep them out. I don't know why, as I'm reading that, you remember that scene from Lord of the Rings where they, Boromir and Aragorn shut the doors and they go, they have a cave troll. I have no, that popped in my head when I was reading that. I kind of like the gatekeeping thing. Oh, someone meme that, please.
Gatekeeping is important. We didn't do enough of it, and that's why we're here now.
Indeed. Now we gotta go double our efforts. Nuke Assassin 4 donates $10. Thank you very much for that. Ultra Smurfs are overrated. The Black Templars should have been the poster children for the Space Marines. I'm biased, but I agree.
I disagree.
And yeah, I know you would.
No, because I can think of at least two better groups. You have Blood Angels and you have White Scars.
Yeah, all biases aside, though, I think, especially since with how often they release editions or FAQs or stuff like that, I feel that I've never understood why they continue to have like one chapter be the poster boys. Like, I get fine, Space Marines be the poster boys. I really wish, as an orc player primarily, I wish orcs would get any kind of fucking love from GW. Fucking all, like any, please, God, just something. But just for Space Marines alone, why is it always the Ultra Smurfs? Why? Just mix it up. Every new edition, use a different chapter at least. Like, come on. Why such a tunnel? I don't know. That's always been so annoying. You have so much you could use to sell each edition and to really just visually separate each edition from one another instantly. Because the thing is, if we just look at some of like the posters for some of the edition differences between like 8th and 9th, if you took away like any of like the logos or the names and just look at the artwork by itself, I don't see a major difference between the 8th edition stuff and the 9th edition stuff. Like the like artwork wise, like I'm not instantly like that's 8th, that's 9th. I really think that to just add that differentiation between editions and to just mix it up at least for what is advertised to people. Use something fucking else other than Ultra Smurfs, like Black Templars, White Scars, Imperial Fists, go into Chaos. There's a number of Traitor Legions you can use from. I don't know, something. Like any of the Xenos races. Something.
I mean, if we're going to stick solely with Astartes...
Which I don't want to do, but...
Well, just for sake of argument, because they're dead set on making them Space Marines as the poster boys. Even among loyal Space Marines, Blood Angels would be such a better pick. And that is my bias completely thrown to the wind. But Blood Angels... through the lore, through everything they've been through all the shit they constantly do, would be a much better pick than the Ultramarines.
I'd agree.
Imperial Fists, they've done some, but I'm not really up to date in what they've done as far as like modern 40k. AR says salamanders. I wouldn't like the three that I would stay away from, and this is because they are the smallest. Would be the salamanders, the Iron Hands, and the Raven Guard. They got fucked in the Horus Heresy, and to an extent, they still haven't recovered in some cases. So I would kind of stay away from them as like the overall poster boy, at least the overall poster boy of loyal Space Marines. I mean, my bias, I'm going to say White Scars, but without my bias, I do think the Blood Angels would be the best choice.
I just want them to use more of them. Like, I don't even need another poster boy. I just want more stuff. And I want there to be a cardboard cutout of something beyond a Space Marine occasionally. Cardboard cutout of a dire Avenger, an Orc, anything but a Necron or a Space Marine, since those are the only things GW produced.
Seriously. I mean, I agree. And the thing is, I would just kill for... Please, just update something of the Orc line. Like,
okay, I got another good idea.
You care, GW. Pretend for 5 seconds.
I just got another really interesting idea.
What?
Imagine like a Predator / Alien-esque, like original Predator, original Alien-esque horror movie, where instead of being the Xenomorph or the Predator, it's a Lictor.
But why though?
Why? Because Lictors are fucking scary. That would make a great horror movie, and they have Alpha Legion levels of stealth in some cases because reasons. But that would actually at least I think, and I hate horror, but that would make a really cool horror movie.
Great.
I fucking hate horror.
Oh, I love slasher flicks. Love them.
But that would make a really cool horror movie, though. Especially like Tyranids.
And the amount of horror material you have in 40k is like...
It's like, yeah. You have Tyranids, you have Necrons. I wouldn't really consider orcs horror material.
Hey, from the right perspective, and if shown in the right way, they can be.
I mean,
giant brutish motherfucker trying to bash your skull in. Like, it's pretty scary.
Okay, but here's the difference, though.
And yeah, it's not as like primal fear. Like, they're just barbarians. There's really not much you could do there for like suspenseful horror.
Like, the top 3 I would put in horror would be the Tyranids, the Necron, or Chaos. Now, orcs, you could make that loose, like, barbarian horror argument, but I mean, you're looking at more of just like orc smash, kind of. Not really, like, at least with the Tyranids, to an extent, you have this overwhelming force of like insect-looking motherfuckers, or like with the Lictor that can hide like no one's business. With the Necrons, they're silent, which adds in it. They're silent metal skeletons. Actually, well, Dark Eldar, you're crossing out of horror and going more into like fetish porn. And then with
pornography, if it can be real scary, Ludus.
I know that, but at the same time, I'm talking about something that like general horror audiences could watch.
I can send you some hentai that'll be horror enough for you.
Got a whole folder of it, do you?
Folder, hard drive, who's to judge?
At a certain point, the volume does not matter.
But and then with Chaos, you have like the possessions, like essentially like the Exorcist level of bullshittery going on.
Just make Event Horizon, but make it official this time, basically.
And it's just like there's really cool things that you can do there, but with the orcs, it's more of just like, yeah, there's this overwhelming fear because it's a green tide that won't stop. But at the same time, orcs are kind of funny, and that kind of kills.
Oh, of course.
And that kind of kills any horror, like a orc movie in the vein of Mad Max. That would actually be hilarious. But like it's Gazgul Magorg Thraka in the Third War for Armageddon essentially did it just to look for a fight. Orcs are kind of like, they are scary, but they're funny at the same time, so it's really hard to have that true horror vibe, at least with me.
Alright, real quick, I'm just going to zoom in because we got 4 super chats. Just want to cover real quick. Bald sent in with £5 per sterling. Astartes and all the other GW has taken over is just to get control of them and to make them do what they want. And yeah,
probably.
That is entirely possible, yes.
Based midwit. Interesting. With £5 per sterling, we have no control over GW or the wider culture. It's going to be up to us to gatekeep our own communities and make our own fanfic and curate it.
And that goes back to what I said earlier about homebrews, or at least or if I'm understanding it right.
If I'm understanding correct, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, like, if you have a group, if you have a group in 40k, and I'm going to take this to the absolute extreme, like they are the extreme SJW people, all about canceling people, but they don't really fuck with 40k, and in their own little circle, they homebrew the shit out of it, where it doesn't really even look like 40k to anyone else, but to them, that is their version of 40k, and they just keep it in that homebrew. I am 100% cool with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with people doing whatever they want in homebrews, as long as they don't try and tell people that A, it's lore accurate, or B, it's canon. Like, it's just... feel free to homebrew the shit out of whatever you want. Like, hell, homebrew female Space Marines, that's fine. It's your fan fiction. You can do what you want with it. You can completely disregard the rules and the lore of the universe if you so choose. Just don't tout it as something official, as something that should be official because you think it should be, because of whatever bullshit reason you want to fill in the blank. It's not yours.
Slanesh turned the Ultramarines and all their successor chapters female just to fuck with the Imperium.
Now, therein lies also the thing, though, because the reason why these people want to change certain aspects is not for the universe at all. That's why I make the difference. These people want to change things because it gives them power. Having not Black Library, but Games Workshop put out a message saying, hey, we stand for these good things, inclusivity, hope, peace, blah, blah, blah. And if you don't, you're very bad. It's one of those messages that is completely innocuous and saying simply, we stand for all good things. And then there's the power grab. If you don't, you will not be missed. Like, that is just, it's power. It's not to change anything. They're not interested in that because they have no interest in the universe. It is to have influence over it they're interested in.
It kind of amazes me someone can... I guess in these people's cases, they don't actually look into it all that much. But for me, it's like it amazes me that people want to change this universe so much because of just how awesome it is. And realistically speaking, what else out there in all the same beats and all the same ways is like 40k? It's such a unique and awesome universe and hobby that I'm kind of always amazed that there are people who say, oh, I want to get into 40k, but then when they don't even scratch the surface of any of its fascinating lore or characters or even just the miniatures, they just immediately want to start changing shit.
I mean, I'm still getting arguments about how StarCraft is so much more OP than 40k.
Yeah, well, whoever's telling you that is fucking dumb.
And well, it's a 500 round magazine rifle. That's just I mean, but it's just hilarious to me because it's like, and Arch, I don't know if I doubt you have if you've seen this or heard about it. I did a couple comparison videos pairing up the 3 factions of StarCraft to 3 factions of 40k that I thought would be somewhat appropriate, you know, Imperium versus the Terrans, Tyranid Zerg, and Eldar and Protoss. And I got told how wrong I was about my opinion without, like, because I even mentioned at the beginning of the video, it's like, I'm not doing any deep research into it. This is just what I know off the top of my head from the lore that I know and from the lore of the games that I've played. Just going into it, just kind of like a brief, kind of like, haha, let's all have fun thing. And then, like, some people just take that shit way too seriously.
Fun is not allowed on the internet.
Yeah, apparently not.
This is forbidden. We forbid this here because we supposedly have authority on Twitter.
I still can't get over the fact that someone told me that an 8mm or the equivalent of an 8mm round is more powerful than the equivalent of a 20mm fucking grenade. I'm not going to get over that one anytime soon.
Some people have interesting opinions.
Radiation would affect Space Marines. No, it fucking wouldn't.
And to you know, I guess a lot of those opinions are also fueled by a form of tribalism. And when somebody is like comparing universes in particular, like if you're somebody who was introduced to 40k first, and you know, you notice this with the Tyranid versus Zerg debate. Like, I stand by that the Zerg would win. Despite the fact that I'm a way bigger fan of 40k, I don't let like the tribalism aspect affect my opinion. I actually look at the actual like lore of both races, and I look at like how they function, and the evolutionary speed and efficiency of the Zerg completely outdoes the Tyranids. Yeah, the Tyranids would have the initial advantage, but the Zerg would quickly adapt, very much so. So, but then you get like but you know, I'm not going to get into that debate too thoroughly, but that's just an example. You then see like the hardcore 40k fans are like, you know, like, no, the Zerg could never win. Face it, everything in 40k is just so OP. Nothing could ever beat it. Well, it's like, well, that's not an argument based on any kind of fact. The reason you feel that way isn't because you actually are thinking about it. You're like, this is my team. This is my flag. This is you know, who I support. Yeah. So, despite all logic, I'm going to defend and stand by this no matter what, even if there's things that, if I were to actually think about it, I disagree with. Like, you see that a lot with, especially, like, you know, even, like, in hobby, like, it doesn't even need to be cross-universe or cross-fiction style things. even within the 40k fandom, like when we just talk like chapter versus chapter, who would win, like Imperial Fist versus Ultramarines, who would win in that fight. It just comes down to people have a bias. They have a tribalistic bias where they just have this team that they support on a fundamental level because it speaks to them more. So despite any kind of logical or rational argument and reasoning for why one would be better than the other in certain regards, they will look for any out, even if it's completely irrational, even if it's completely nonsensical, to justify that tribalistic, like, this is my team, so this is why they're better. Like, people will completely go out of their way and completely go through these massive mental hoops to defend this tribalism, and we see that a lot. To kind of connect it to the triggering conversation. That's the same with like these Twitter nut jobs. Like they're like, we have this narrative politically we want to spread, and part of that narrative is like hobbies like this are somehow sexist and racist and istophobes and shit. So
it's like,
and so that tribalism part of their brain is just, they're going completely through these like 1,000-mile stair hoops of logic to justify their perspective, which includes completely disregarding the existence, like for the female Space Marine debate, completely disregarding the existence of Sisters of Battle or Sisters of Silence.
Again, it's just power. Like, they don't care about the fact that there is an equivalent. They care about the fact that this thing isn't what they want it to be.
Yeah.
And the thing I find funny is you're talking about that tribalism. It's like, and I've never had this as a secret. My favorite faction is Chaos, but Chaos is one of the worst leaders in Abaddon ever.
He's a pretty big idiot. Very inefficient.
That's an understatement if there ever was one. He is so counterintuitive for what Chaos actually wants, that he is a joke at this point, and I really wish he would die already. Like, there are so many better characters to take his place, but it's got to be him because he was the first captain under Horus, and fucking reasons, I guess. I don't know, but I mean, like, that's something that, like, because I take a really objective view on it. Like I said, I mean, I really like Chaos, but at the same time, Abaddon has got to be like one of the worstly written characters fucking ever. Like, there are scenes in the first 3 books where he doesn't even seem like a son of Horus. He seems more like a world eater. Like, back in early Horus, like right before Horus Heresy, it was rare for Astartes to fight Astartes, or for them to actually be like outwardly violent towards Imperial citizens unless they were like revolting or some shit. Like, they wouldn't just for no reason attack an Imperial citizen. And when he just gets questioned by a human, by a remembrancer, about like, hey, what was that passed between you and Erebus? He's essentially tries to rip a man in half. And it's like, it's just so unreasonable, and it's just really weird at the same time. Because he is either like schizophrenic and bipolar, and that's how they're writing him, or he has so many damn writers which this is the one I think is more likely, that I
think most of us would agree with that.
That they're like, okay, so he has anger issues and daddy issues, and we're going to do that in every book, but we're all going to do it a different damn way. And we're going to make him completely inept at whatever he does.
He didn't get enough time to develop as evil. That's one of the main problems with the Horus Heresy. The Sons of Horus go from being a fairly upstanding, honorable, run-of-the-mill Astartes chapter to puppy-eatingly evil over the course of a book, pretty much.
Yeah, speaking of like especially developmental issues with 40k, you guys know about Erda, right?
No, I refuse.
Well, yeah. The thing is, she's another great example of like what could be an interesting idea. Could be.
Ruined.
but the execution. Oh my
thing,
god! The
the
only
thing-
execution I've seen worse is with the Primaris.
You know what I love the best about it, though? They probably went through all that trouble just to make that storyline work in their twisted little minds. And even now, when you look up the lore, they don't even remotely fucking mention her. Like when I'm doing my research for Chagatai Khan, it's like when he was mysteriously transported through the warp as an infant by the Chaos God. It's like, yes! Yes, it's still non-canonical. Yes!
Yes, victory!
Erda was just more... Erda, I think, was a remarkably brave choice by Games Workshop to prove once more that, yes, women are the heart of every fucking problem ever.
Yeah.
If it weren't for women, the Emperor would have won.
It's just, again, like, this thing is, with, like, if I were to, like, write in Erda's character, just the idea of her, I would not have done it in not only a book that's not about her, like, even remotely, but I would have introduced her character over the course of several books, leading to a book that is not solely about her, but that has more of a focus on her. Like, basically, really give the community time to warm to the character, and then reveal her backstory. And then, with that backstory, don't make her literally responsible for every single problem in the entirety of the canon lore.
What I think two things are funny from this. One, that you know that wasn't their intention. And two, is just how ham-fisted they write that shit, and they write it to the point where even the Emperor knew where she was, and didn't kill a bitch. Like, if the Emperor were really like this evil tyrant that most of these writers write him out to be, you really think he wouldn't just pick her up by the neck until she either A, changed colors, or her head just mysteriously popped off? Like,
well, that's the problem too with this recent attempt to make the Emperor into the bad guy. They don't write him as a villain. Like, he seems completely justifiable in his fucking actions, and yet they're like, oh no, he's really bad. But how is he bad? Like, what is he doing that is objectionable here? Like, what is the problem?
I think the best part about it is the more they try and write him as bad but make everything justifiable, really shows what kind of nutcases they have writing these books. He bad, but that's a logical reason that you wrote. But Goldman bad.
Yeah, the Emperor is a perfect example as well of, like, the differing writers having such an impact on, like, how bad the lore is at times, especially with consistency, because each writer and each character that they write speaks of the Emperor or about the Emperor in completely different fashions. So just the thing is, I like that to a degree, like with, like, the unreliable narrator thing. I like that to a degree. The problem is it, even amongst the characters, there doesn't feel like there's consistency with how the Emperor is portrayed. He's either the smartest, most brilliant, most powerful being, godlike in every way, with minor flaws, or he's portrayed as the biggest fucking dumbass with the biggest psychological naivete I've ever fucking seen in any character, despite being supposedly thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years old, and having dealt with so many different people in his time. He's completely and utterly inept in paying attention to the Primarchs' behaviors, knowing that certain actions he takes against them pre-Heresy would possibly lead to a coup. Like, just the way he's portrayed by different writers and as the lore as a whole, I to this day have no idea who the Emperor is.
It's
as
the
a
problem
character.
with too many goddamn chefs in the kitchen
Yeah,
right now.
That's always been the biggest problem with the lore. in my
And it's
opinion.
also that you've got people like, because the one who started this was Aaron Bowden. He was the one who started this, and he should never be allowed within 1,000 fucking yards of anything related to the Loyalists, and yet he constantly is for some godly reason. And the problem here is not that ADB is not, or that he's a bad writer, because he isn't. He's a pretty damn good writer. But he thinks himself a philosopher, and he is most assuredly not, which is why he manages to write Lorgar like he's like, oh, this is very sympathetic, and he uses the tricks to make a sympathetic character. He has him be the victim to begin with. He has him have a misunderstanding, and he wants the reader to be like, oh, poor Lorgar, like he just wanted to be a good boy. But the moment you actually start to analyze Lorgar's character, he is given opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to just not be a monster, and every time he chooses to be one. And yet ADB is like, oh, this is very complex. I like the part when he thought about killing his sons via torturous death for a whole 2 hours.
Yeah, it's... I crave consistency so much with the lore, and there's none. The perfect analogy, like you said, too many chefs in the fucking kitchen.
Well, so a way, and I think Arch actually kind of hit on this, where Anthony ADB, because that's going to be easier than me trying to fucking remember his name.
Aaron Densky Bowden.
ADB. Where, he writes chaos really well, and he can't write loyalists to save its life.
He actively despises them, I think.
Well, and there's a solution to this. There's actually a really simple solution that they're just not going to do, but there's a simple solution to this. Have a group. And if you want to be extra special and give everyone their own little special spaces, have a wing of the building be specifically for each fucking faction. And, like, for instance, ADB can only be in the Chaos wing. But seriously, for people who prefer or are really good at writing chaos, just go to them like, you are now only writing chaos because this is good. This is garbage. Now, please, just write the good shit. That's what you do really well. That's what you do really well, does well for us and well for you. So just do what you do well. And just go through that with all their writers. And if they did, and unfortunately, I'm kind of handicapped here because I've only read the first few books of the Horus Heresy series, but two of my favorite writers ever, and this is not just in Horus Heresy, but my second and third favorite writers are James Swallow and Dan Abnett. I love Flight of the Eisenstein. That book is written so well for me, and I don't know if it's like this for everyone, but the way they write Nathaniel Garrow and how he goes through his transformation to this atheistic warrior to almost this holiest of crusaders. How they do that transition, even though it is in one book, they do that transition really, really well. And then with Dan Abnett in the first three books, from Horus Rising all the way to I think it's Galaxy in Flames is the third one. Yes, Horus Rising, False Gods, and Galaxy in Flames. That whole trilogy right there, he writes it. And yeah, a lot of the stuff does happen quick, like going from like the bestest of boys to, as Arch aptly put it, puppy eating monsters. But he does a lot of the writing for Horus and for a lot of the named characters, for the most part, really well. Like when you see Horus and you see where he has his abandonment issues, where you see he has like his almost where he has massive self-esteem issues. you can feel that. And it goes to the same thing again in Flight of the Eisenstein with James Swallow. You can, well, or at least I can anyway. I can feel, the pain coming from Nathaniel Garrow because he has to run away from his Legion at a point when this was thought impossible for them. And it's like there are other books I've seen written well, but not put off nearly as much of the emotion as these put off.
Yeah, Garrow's a good character, and he was given enough time to actually develop himself too.
I did think
crucial.
I think actually one of my favorite scenes from Flight of the Eisenstein is actually one of the most fucked up scenes, and that's where his housecarl Caleb comes back and is just like right in front of him, and it freaks him the fuck out.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really cool scene. Master! Oh shit!
It's also because in that case, the author actually knew that he had a limited amount of time with which to make his character as well, something that Abaddon really suffers from, because Abaddon spends like 2 books being this fairly good guy before then turning around and being like, oh, by the way, I was evil all along. Like, no, you don't say so, Abaddon.
Well, so and I do think one of the ways they try to remedy that in the first couple books, I do vaguely remember this, is a conversation between, I believe it's Aximand and Loken, is that they mention that Abaddon has always had a really bad temper, but they don't play they kind of like don't play into it as much in the books, but they do allude to it from the past. So they do kind of try and have a setup, but that's a very small setup.
It's a very weak setup. Like, I myself have kind of a bad temper, yet I don't think that mass murder is on the agenda anytime soon.
Well, like, clearly the author
between
disagrees.
Throwing your keyboard occasionally and being like, right, well, you're my favorite brother, but bitch gotta die. Real sorry about this, bro, but that time of the month.
Yeah. Oh god, that's great.
Oh my god.
Yeah, maybe the author was projecting in that case. It's like I get this angry, so clearly that's normal. I'm gonna make this character like that too.
I don't think so, because in the rest of the book, you don't really see that. In the rest of the original 3 books, because they're all the same author. Although I did love that. I did love that that analogy. That was great.
Poor Abaddon.
What I really hate is they bastardized him so hard for so many years that I really do think they would be better off just fucking killing him at this point.
Put the bastard out of his misery.
I genuinely hated his little... The thing they did, where it's like, okay, Abaddon's been a standing fucking joke in the Warhammer 40k community now for basically as long as the characters existed. 13 tries, 0 success. And they decide to just be like, oh, no. It was all as planned, you see. He failed 13 times so that the last time he'd get it right. Like, no, GW. No, just... You can have him be a rival warlord, but somebody else needs to do this. Like, don't upend the entire universe by having like, Kekakudori. Like, what fucking kind of Japanese supervillain are you now? Yeah, I hate Abaddon.
The thing that I would love is if they honestly bring back either Aximand, but I don't think Aximand would do it, honestly, or if they just go to a different fucking legion to lead the Forces of Chaos. And off the top of my head, and because I'm actually back where we actually stopped doing the super chats, I see this in the chat. Iron Hands would, or not Iron Hands, Iron Warriors would be a good choice.
Petarabo and his never-ending sulk.
I didn't say Perturabo, but an Iron Warrior would be an interesting choice to lead in Abaddon's place.
Interesting choice, yes, but the question would be like, is there a specific character you have in mind when you say that, or?
There was one. Let me try and he was a warp smith. I don't remember his fucking name, but there's like this big internal war. But like get one of them because at least the benefit is they don't give a shit about casualties.
Well, no, they get that from their dad, you know.
Yeah, but no, but like that's what. That's
not
what
only do they not give a shit about casualties, it's like, hey, they slightly fuck up, kill them.
Yeah, but don't you think that would make a cool replacement for Abaddon?
I think it would make a more fittingly evil replacement to Abaddon.
I mean, potato, tomato, yes. And yes, by the way, I had someone try and tell me at work, my closest friend at work, he's like, a tomato is both a fruit and a vegetable. Like, no, you motherfucker, it's a fruit.
What?
A tomato is a fruit.
Yeah, but like, he said it was a fruit and a vegetable?
Yes, he did. We had a 20-minute argument on this.
You argued for 20 minutes about whether...
Yes!
In terms of trivial arguments, I gotta give you credit. That's up there.
That is definitely not the most trivial argument we had. Welcome back, Arch.
Yeah.
I just got done telling Asmogan because I was talking about like a warpsmith from the Iron Warriors taking Abaddon's place, and I thought that would be fitting because they don't give a shit about about casualties, and Asmogan brought up the point of where if they fail, they'll just fucking kill them anyway. So that would make, he's like, yeah, that would make an appropriately evil replacement.
I said that to point out that with the Iron Warriors in particular, it's not just about them not caring about casualties, it's about them contributing to their own.
And so I say this phrase that I forgot where I picked it up from, but you know how people say tomato, tomato, I say potato, tomato. And I was just telling Asmogan how me and another cook at work had a 20-minute argument because he said a tomato is both a fruit and a vegetable, and I almost smacked him.
I'm impressed you argued that long.
It was like one of those slow nights at work, so we really didn't have any other bullshit to do, so he just said that, and we just stayed on it for about 20 minutes.
Using your time effectively. I respect that.
We're both. Sorry, go ahead.
Let's zip through another set of super chats here.
The one we left off on was one from $2 by AR. It said salamanders would be my choice. Talking about poster boys for 40k.
So we left off on. So we did cover that one. Like,
well, I just did, but no.
Okay.
You stopped at the one before it.
All right, so salamanders would be his choice, and that was in reference to
the poster boys for the Astartes.
To the poster boys. I mean, I can see them being the post. Sorry about my dog, by the way, everybody. She's been losing her mind all day. Salamanders, I could see being the poster boys to a degree, but I don't know. I think there's other chapters that I think would. Yeah, I guess eventually I would agree the salamanders would earn a spot, but I think like more lore heavier or more predominant chapters have earned like the poster boy spot over the Ultramarines more so. Like I would prefer even though I don't like them, the Dark Angels would I think are owed a spot there at some point.
But they're not loyal.
Long-standing debate.
They aren't. I don't give a shit what you say. They've killed more Imperials than half the forces of Chaos.
Well, you could also argue that's also kind of effective because they're like Schrodinger's chapter. Like are they representing the Loyalists as the poster boys? Or are they representing Chaos as the poster boys?
The Schrodinger's legions, the Dark Angels, and the fucking Alpha Legion.
I would feel bad for like the new fans who hop into the hobby off of that though. They're like, so are these guys the good guys or the bad guys? It's like,
yes,
yes. All right, what are these guys called the Alpha Legion? What about them? Yes.
Yes.
They absolutely are.
Flip a coin. But yeah, I would agree Salamanders eventually, like, multiple editions down the road covering other poster boys, I could see them earning a spot there. So next one after that was from Nuke Assassin 4 for $10. Orc movie in vein of Mad Max. That would be pretty cool.
That would be pretty fucking badass.
And especially if we'd be like following the perspective of like a badass guardsman.
I was thinking an orc
Put it in the
movie.
perspective of a fucking Gretchen just trying to survive.
God.
Just confused as all of these fucking trucks and shit. Like, god damn it.
Well, I was thinking of like a speed cult, though. Is what I was thinking.
Well, yeah, like dealing with one, but
wait. I got it. A movie that follows an orc speed cult to the vein of Fast and the Furious.
What? Vin Diesel bitching about the orcs fucking his sister all the time.
I mean, he does that anyway, doesn't he?
He does.
He does indeed. Nuke Assassin 4 for another $10 says the Sisters of Battle are even more badass than female Space Marines because the Sisters aren't genetically modified to the degree. And this has always been my excuse, my argument as well for why I stand by the Sisters of Battle are better than some generic bullshit female Space Marine crap. Is the same reason as Nuke Assassin 4. So, good one, man. Sisters aren't genetically modified to the degree they aren't really human anymore. Exactly. And they make up the difference between them and Space Marines on their own. Like they're not like genetic monstrosities stitched together to make up the difference like a female Space Marine would be. They are just they make up the difference with sheer religious zealotry. I would argue to a degree psychopathy.
Well, and
there's sheer will.
The Sisters of Battle in this case come in second for me to the Sisters of Silence. Because they are essentially not mutate, but
well, they're a natural mutation, so natural in quotes.
Well, I meant to say modified because I meant genetically modified in the sense of similar to like a guardsman.
Well, does modify really work? Because
on them, yeah, they go under genetic modification.
Oh yeah, they do. Oh, sorry, I was thinking more of like the natural being like null psychers. So,
but They get modifications closer to like Imperial Guard, Imperial Army.
I was thinking more just like their origins. I wasn't really like thinking like the status of Sisters of Silence. So sorry about that.
No.
I was just kind of stuck in like where they come from part. Like I wasn't really thinking like proper Sisters of Silence. No, that's what I meant.
They're closer to base human and can fight side by side with Astartes, and even to an extent remain hidden from some Astartes. And like that to me, and they've been doing it for over 10,000 years. That to me, I'm sorry, will always be more badass than Sisters of Battle. They have the history. They have the history. They aren't they're still basically for 40k, as much as it fucking cares, baseline human. And they can stand up with Astartes. Oh fuck no. No, they win.
You win. Here's all my money.
Yeah. Where do you stand on that one, Arch? Between the two, essentially the two all-female human factions, Sisters of Battle or Sisters of Silence?
I echo Games Workshop argument with Erda that all women are inherently evil and cause nothing but problems.
We're gonna get some comments.
Emperor did nothing wrong, but his wife sure as hell did.
Oh god.
Comment right under that super chat. I just want to point this out. Draconis Wolflord said Erda the Space Karen.
Yes.
She lays waste to everything in her path.
So Adam Wolford, do you guys know anything about Destiny? I think so Destiny the game. I think the Hive faction would fit perfectly in Warhammer. They use something like Catan powers, and they are a death cult that they worship worm gods.
I will put it.
I'm not familiar with Destiny lore fundament. I'm familiar with some basics about it, having played Destiny 1. But like the expansive lore with like I think there's a grimoire. Like I'm not familiar with like the really detailed stuff.
I will say this that I'll put it this way. Let me know the minute that you think anyone from the Hive faction would survive a fucking round from a bolter, and then yeah, maybe they would fit perfectly in Warhammer. If not, then no, probably not.
Well, considering from what I remember from Destiny that you can bring down the Fallen with basically the equivalent of like an AR-15 with 5.56 rounds, A
then they would
Bolterran would
hilariously
be
get stolen.
hilariously destructive.
They would get hilariously slaughtered. So no, they wouldn't fit perfectly.
No, they would.
I'm sorry.
They would not
I-
survive 40k.
I'll say I'm sorry, but I do appreciate that you do like them and that you do appreciate them. But unfortunately, Warhammer is really a hard universe to put anything else into. In fact, the only reason I was able to do my brief comparisons with StarCraft, and even then, the majority of them came out in favor of 40k, is just because there is a laughable difference in strength. As a quick example, this is my favorite. If you're looking at capital ships, the Hyperion is something like 9, like at its longest, because the measurements are so fucking varied, it's not funny. It's anywhere between 2 kilometers long or 9 kilometers long. So, given the benefit of the doubt, we'll say 9 kilometers long because that's pretty massive. The McCragg's Honor, which is still in service and is Rabute Gilliman's flagship, is 26 kilometers long. That is a difference of almost 3 fucking times. So the balance of power is really, really weighed heavily in 40k. In fact, I did an overall where it was like overall 40k versus Caprulu sector, and I even narrowed it down to Ultramarines, which is a subfaction of the Imperium by being Astartes, and a subfaction of Astartes by being a fucking Legion. So I had to water it down about 2 or 3 times just to do Ultramarines versus Caprulu sector, just to make it. And still, it wasn't fair, honestly, but to make it as fair as possible with that massive of a handicap. So it's one of those things where I really appreciate how much you like them, but it's just really hard to do those comparisons.
Yeah, especially if you don't have every single detail you really need to compare note for note. So next we have Joseph Kerwin donated $5. Lorgar and Magnus were sensitive boys. Big E shouldn't have bullied them like he did.
Big E should have beaten them harder than he did. The only way to cure sensitivity is with the back of Daddy's hand.
Wait a minute, who was the first one?
Sometimes with Daddy's belt.
I didn't see the super chat, but it was Lorgar and who else?
Lorgar and Magnus.
No, Magnus' problem wasn't that he was sensitive. Magnus' problem is that he was arrogant.
The thing is, if I was to go with like the 2 most sensitive Primarchs, I'd probably put Perturabo and Lorgar, yeah. I'd put the 2 of them on there. I wouldn't put Magnus as...
Magnus was not really overly sensitive. He always thought he knew better than everyone.
Yeah.
Yes, another trait that can be fixed via repeated beatings.
Like, woof, woof. Yeah, the thing, that kind of harkens back to like what we said though about like just in general with 40k writing, and both with Big E and how he treats his sons and not being able to predict that his treatment would lead to certain. I'm still baffled by that.
Well, I kind of get the whole idea behind Horus. I do.
With Horus, I can easily picture him because with Horus you have the outside force as well, like with the Chaos Gods corrupting his mind and showing him the future, and then lying to him by omission by leaving out a lot of details. That I can easily understand with his corruption because it started out as just this small internal thing that, with outside influence of the Chaos Gods themselves directly, it bloomed into a much more... Basically, they took a small chink in his mind, and they tore it open into this giant, gaping gash.
So Lorgar should have fucking got lobotomized.
So that, for him, it makes sense. With the other Primarchs, though, who weren't corrupted along those lines, that were just...
varying degrees.
Yeah, because Fulgrim is easy to explain, because Fulgrim was never around, and he was getting corrupted by an outside influence.
Yeah, with the blade.
Well, he too, Fulgrim, that's why I hate the Reflection Cracked so much again, because Fulgrim knew that he was fucking up. His mind broke as he realized the horrible things he'd done to Ferrus Manus. And that was what's so cool about him. That was what made him a tragic villain. And then instead it's like, oh no, he learned some warp fuckery whilst inside of the demon's mind. He's fine now. Oh, thank you. I did enjoy that for a while.
But then like Mortarion, and please correct me if I'm wrong, out of all the traitor Primarchs, Mortarion was one of the hardest to get for Horus to get on his side, because he did remain loyal to the Emperor, even though he didn't really fucking like him. And the last straw was kind of like, yeah, Dad's fucking around with the warp.
The thing with Mortarion's reason for turning to chaos was just because he's a cranky cunt.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a very good reason, but, well, we don't have enough books to dedicate to him, so that's all you're gonna get.
I mean, Angron makes perfect fucking sense of Angron should have been like, he should have been fucking surrounded by custodes at all times. Like,
Angron is one of those moments where the Emperor's writing just turns the Emperor into a retard. Like, Angron should have been greeted with a swift neck shot upon discovery, at the very least. Or just, the Emperor helping him. That would have helped too. It's like, hi, okay, so I've got this army in space. I could just nuke them,
What? The Emperor being a dad? Are you insane?
Well, I think
not even basic military strategy. So, son, I see you're fighting a bunch of horseborn savages. I've got spaceships.
well, I think the two that really fall flat, like you said, with the Emperor just being like the world's biggest retard, is Angron and Lorgar.
Fucking Lorgar.
Because, like, Monarchia, I still don't, I will never understand that to this day. But with the Emperor finding him on Colchis and seeing all this shit of, like, this old faith, and he's like, oh yeah, he probably wiped it out. Like, that's something you would think the Emperor would be a little extra sure about.
Probably would have taken notice.
Like, you know what? Here, let's go, son. Where are we going? I want you to see this ship. Why is the planet on fire? No reason.
Dad, don't focus on the negative. Focus on the positive.
Monarchia too. Like, the thing, like, I actually fully understand why he went to quite that length, really, because he did give warning after warning after warning. Like, bitch, stop this shit. I've told you again and again. And then eventually he brought out the belt, as mentioned. But what annoys me is the way it's written. Like, Lorgar is stood there dumbfounded, like, but Dad, why? Like, dude, check your Blueberry messages, son. Come on, seriously. I've been telling you this for a while now.
It's just the Emperor was never subtle about his feelings. And it's one of the biggest parts of the Crusade was the Emperor's truth. So
this wasn't difficult to discern. Like,
no, it's been ranted at him and all the other legions and all the other Primarchs consistently. It's part of their job.
Of the fucking crusade is this, and Lorgar sat there like, but I didn't know.
But I didn't know. I religion, the Emperor, Big Daddy. Oh, he's God. He's God. Everybody, he's God.
Well, no, and the reason I really hated the whole thing with Monarchia is because
Wait, the Ultramarines. Did you say Monarchia?
Yeah.
Okay, because I thought it sounded like Malarkia for a second.
No, I said Monarchia.
I don't know. I don't know why I heard Malarkia.
Like, but Malarkia. My problem with that is that the Ultramarines didn't act like fucking Ultramarines.
That was the other thing as well. It's like, okay, you're gonna bombard the city, fine. Oh, that'll send a nice big fiery message to the dumbass kid who never checks his cell phone, fine. But give them warning. Like, just escort them out. It's fine. You don't have to fly around in land speeders with heavy bolters like, hello, citizen, move or I'll blast you into potato paste. No, it's fine. A little bit more warning. Or hell, just even have the ultimate humiliation of having the word bearers escort them out themselves. You're going to blow up your city now. You don't get to say anything about it.
I mean, it's just and again, I agree with you. I kind of understand why he went to that extreme, And he picked the right legion, honestly, for the time, because short of the Ultramarines, there were very few that really kept their tempers in check.
Oh yeah, there were plenty of legions that could burn a planet, but there were very few who could do so without offering a little bit extra, spit in it. Like Angron could burn it, but Angron would also be sitting there smiling at him like, bitch.
Actually, an interesting thought. If you could pick any legion to go to Monarchia instead of Gilliman and his blueberries to prove the point to Lorgar, who would you have picked?
Magnus, undoubtedly, because he wouldn't have let it stand. He would have kept rubbing it in. It's like, oh yes, you see, this is why we're doing this in great detail.
I would have gone with Rorgul Dorn and the Imperial Fists, because they would have been efficient and very blunt about it. Magnus would have. I agree. He probably would have. He would have sent the message home and would have, nailed it. But I think Rorgul Dorn would just be flat about it, like really tough.
I would.
Again, that's why I want Magnus, because Magnus would turn punishment into ritualistic humiliation. And I fucking hate Lorgar.
It's like hazing.
Pretty much.
So here's an
as the city burns. So, what have we learned today?
Here's the one that I would pick, but this is actually for a pretty fucked up reason. The Khan and the Scars. And not because I have a newfound love for them, but it took the word bearers 2 months to get there after it burned to the fucking ground. Yet they would find no one there. They would be gone the next day, off to the next bullshit thing they had to do. But it would be like they would come back, and be like, "Where is there? Why is what the what? Why? What? Huh?"
I suppose it would sting a little bit extra if they came to Monarchy and all they found was a post-it lab. Like, sorry, too slow.
Yeah.
Well, come.
Catch up, motherfucker.
No, even worse in slightly more meme worthy, a little post note says gotta go fast.
that little janky looking Sonic drawing.
I mean, like, seriously, that would be like the funniest damn thing. Either that or like if they got there at the same time. Could you imagine if Lorgar like stepped up to the Khan? Like, Gilliman can keep his shit in check, but imagine like if Lorgar had the balls to like go chest to chest with like Angron or the Khan or Dorn for that matter.
How's the beauty of Gilliman? He managed to keep his cool even whilst getting punched. Very respectable.
I would love to have seen him try and punch the Khan. That would have been beautiful. Or again, Dorn for that matter.
The Khan would probably have made a diss track verse for him. Let me humiliate you in rhyme, brother.
And the best part is, I can honestly see this, but this like brings out this would actually be perfect for this would be a great Warhammer Adventures thing.
Okay.
Of Lorgar throwing a punch at the Khan grabbing his hand, hooking into the nook of his elbow and making him punch himself, going, "Stop hitting yourself! Stop hitting yourself!"
Bonk, bonk, bonk.
I don't know why I could see the Khan doing that, but I could see him having that kind of fucked up sense of humor as to make Lorgar punch himself in the face.
That would be beautiful to witness. Yeah. So just gonna zip through these other ones because I think these are quick. AR donated $2. Flight is one of the best books of the Horus Heresy series, and I would agree.
Oh, actually, hold on. Nestea brought two actually really good ones were Nestea and Draconis Wolflord as to who to send to Monarchia. Nestea said send Conrad Curse and the Night Lords.
Well, there's driving a point home, and then there's tattooing the point to the man's head.
No, that's tattooing it to his ass, so he never fucking forget. And Dragonis said Russ and the Space Wolves.
What he should do, okay, Night Lords, yes, and then not tattoo the ass, but instead, he should tattoo the word monarchia on his right hand and then leave it enclosed like every time you wipe your ass, brother. You'll remember I had to clean up after you here.
Oh god.
Oh my god, that's so great. Okay, so Dragonis brought up an interesting point, but I don't think there's any way the Emperor could have convinced him to do this, and that would be Sanguinius. I don't honestly see him convincing Sanguinius to burn one of his brother cities to the ground.
Yeah, I think Sanguinius would actually debate the Emperor on that one.
He'd be like, look, let's just talk it out with him. Yes, he's the special child. Yes, I know, religion. He's special. But let's talk to him. We don't have to burn anything to the ground.
Yeah, I don't see Sanguinius accepting that task. And I don't see the Emperor affording it to him either, because I don't think the Emperor... Because even if Sanguinius did pay lip service to it and say, okay, I'll do it, does anyone honestly believe he would go all out? Like, do you think he would send in his Blood Angels to actually burn the city? Do you think they do some minor damage, intentionally evacuate entire areas to do some small ordnance, and then just leave with maybe like one banner burning? And then just, like, I don't see Sanguinius going all out or even establishing a point as thoroughly as any other Primarch, really.
Science Mile saying one less like it would be Vulcan and the Salamanders. They would burn it to the ground, but they would evacuate everyone first.
Oh yeah, definitely.
They'd be nice about it too.
Lorgar would come back and see Vulcan sitting there beating rubble with a fucking hammer and be like, look what I did, brother. Isn't it beautiful? It's a pile of rubble, yes, but it is your pile of rubble.
And
I made it for you.
Yeah, the Salamanders would probably help people pack up their belongings and shit.
Probably, yeah.
They say, okay, so like an elderly old woman is like, I don't know where I put the little snow globe. And where's Snuffles? And then this giant space marine is like, I'll look for Snuffles.
And the best part is they would be giving them piggyback rides too.
Carry the old woman out on their shoulders, going like, why are we leaving? I'm going to burn your house, Grandma. But why? Orders.
So fortunate.
Nastea said Vulcan would burn it into the shape of a smiley face.
That's funny.
It's so funny. Like, this is some great headcanon stuff, but going through like what the other legions would have done to Monarchia has been like one of the funniest things I've talked about in like the past few weeks.
It is very funny to picture.
Actually, one we didn't really talk about, Earl Testicules, I love that name. Perturabo would do it, but be I think it means meh about it. Perturabo wouldn't evacuate the citizens. He would just fucking bomb it.
Yeah, he bombed it to shit, and then if there was like one little thing, like one little half of a building still standing, he would then kill half of his men who were in charge of dropping ordnance because they failed to destroy that one. Like, that would be Perturabo. It's like, you missed one stick. Dead. Leave their bodies there as I don't know, payment to his own perceived failure.
Actually, another group that I couldn't see doing it would be the Death Guard. They would see it as just too far beneath them.
Okay. I was about to say, like, for a moral debate, because I don't think they would morally have a problem with it.
No, they would, well, Earl, at that point, I could see them morally having a problem with it.
What do you think, Arch?
Never really virus bomb it, just for shits and giggles.
And yeah, I don't see them having an emotional, like, I can't possibly do this. This is beneath me. Like, this, if it hurts people, like, I can't do that. Like, I totally can see them doing it.
I don't know how Mortarion got along with Lorgar, so give me a second. I'll look it up real quick. If he hated him now, he would just fucking fire his bomb it just for shits and giggles.
Draconis Wolford's asking Ferris, Manus, Fulgrim, Alfarius. Basically just wanting us to go through every legion.
I mean, they're the only three we haven't gone through at this point, so might as fucking well.
Let's see. Ferrus Manus would do it, and probably be pretty efficient about it too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
He'd
see.
get done an hour before schedule.
Yeah, he'd be pretty efficient and collective. I don't see him being like, even comedically, like I don't see him being like rubbing it in Lorgar's face or anything. I just see him being like, this is a job. I did my job. All right, I'm gone.
Well, speaking of jobs, I am afraid I must take my leave now, gentlemen.
All right. Thank you
have a
very
good one,
much for joining us, Arch, and have a great day.
It was a pleasure, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Have a good one, sir. Let's see. I don't know what Alfarius would do. That's the scary part. Fulgrim wouldn't burn it down. He would just repaint it.
Let's see. I actually, honestly, personality-wise, I'm not sure how Fulgrim would go about, like, whether he would do it or not, whether he had moral qualms with it. I know that with Fulgrim and the Emperor's Children, they had, at this point, they definitely all had a part of them where they were perfectionists, and they kind of, their goal was to, basically, they wanted to be at the Emperor's level or better. So they would do it because they would perceive it as like, okay, the Emperor's telling us to do this, so therefore we must do this. Like, there's no question.
And then they would rebuild it at like perfect angles and shit.
Which leaves Alfarius Omegon. How would the Alpha Legion do it?
I prefer Earl Testicules' answer. Alfarius would already be on the planet as half the population. So I couldn't really find anything about the relationship between Lorgar and Mortarion. And I'll stick with this. If Mortarion really did not like Lorgar, if Mortarion did not like Lorgar, then yeah, he would probably fucking do it. And he would probably just virus bomb it and go down and breathe in the air. And then, but if he didn't have any problems with Lorgar, I just can't see him doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I get where you're coming from, but I think he would. Personally. Well, I'm not saying he would do it happily, but I think he would still do it, though.
I think it would be this conversation. You want me to do what? Why? To prove a point to Lorgar. And this is where I think the differentiation comes in. Whereas if he doesn't like Lorgar, he'd be like, okay, let's prove a point to Lorgar. Whereas in, if he really has nothing wrong between him, I think he would really be kind of like, he hasn't really done anything to me. I don't want to burn his shit to the ground, so no. Because he really didn't like the Emperor either, so.
Yeah. And from that angle, I could see him refusing to do it as a form of defiance more to the Emperor than as a, I don't want to hurt my brother kind of thing.
Oh, no, I don't think he would do it like, I don't think he would go under the, like, I guess I kind of misspoke when I said under the moral argument, because I don't think he would do it like not to hurt his brother. I think it would be one of those cases where he wouldn't do it essentially just because he would see a better use for his time.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah.
And Dragrana has brought up, I think, the last one that we haven't talked about, and that's the Lion.
The Lion.
If I remember right, the Lion fucking hated Lorgar.
If I remember correctly, yeah, they didn't get along. So if they would do it, and they would ask, like, how long are we allowed to destroy the city? Like, can we do this at my own rate, or do I have to do it quickly? You know?
Yeah, he would have some fucking fun with that one.
Yeah, I see that. Let's see. So, last two super chats before we're all cut up. Doom Guy versus Space Marine from Nuke Assassin 4. Space Marine, me personally.
And if you want to use an argument about plot armor, then put him up against any fucking Ultramarine ever, and it would still be Space Marine. But no, seriously, if you go by their actual, if you take away the plot armor, even still, it would go to any Astartes. Any line of Astartes should be able to kill him. I mean, Doom
Adam
Guy is
Wolford-
stealth. Not that tall.
All right, so Captain Caboose with $5 before we get to Adam Wolford's just done super chat. By the way, thank you guys. Grim Darkness of the 40 for 41k. Not even the Emperor is safe from the horrors of child custody. So the entire Horus Heresy is reduced to Karen took the kids. And yeah, that's always been my biggest fucking problem with Erda and her kid. They just kind of throw her into the fucking Saturnine book and just kind of throw in that her whole story, more or less. And it just her yeeting her supposed sons that she cares enough about to rebel against the Emperor to do it. But to do it, she throws her own children through the fucking warp. Now, I can't remember whether or not Erda was aware of the Chaos Gods or not. I don't fucking remember. Well, even if she wasn't, the knowledge that the warp is not a good place is pretty well established at this point. It's not like this is a mystery. Like, warp travel has always been testy. So, what the fuck? Like, best case scenario, you just yeeted your children through an alternate dimension full of fucky shit. And again, you did this because you loved them and wanted to prevent them from being hurt by their father. What's the worst he was gonna do? He was gonna turn them into warlords and warriors and artificial generals for his army. All in all, it's not the worst fucking existence. I mean, that's what they were made for. So
Dragona said she was supposed to be a massive psyker, so she should know what the warp is.
Yeah, it's just, again, even with that, if you know what the fucking warp is, in particular, you are so dumb. Like, she's dumb. Again, I'm not opposed to a female perpetual being used to water down the Emperor's genetics. I'm fine. That's where I can get on board a little bit. I think I know where they're trying to go with that, but at the very least, the idea isn't horrible.
Right. And that's something that I agreed with and I thought made sense because it needed that, because all of the Primarchs were really different from each other. So this at least lends some explanation as to why they're so different from each other.
And yeah, if they were all just essentially clones of the Emperor with no other genetic influence or no other source of like their personalities or where they come from, if it's just him, why are they so different? That's always been a question. And with Erda as an idea, that's possible. You know, it's a completely different source of genetics, so also that could contribute to completely different personalities and appearances, and just there's so much about that could add for fluff that would be interesting. The problem is, like with everything GW fucking does with lore, they have a good idea or an idea that can be good if executed properly and with the right amount of patience and build-up, and they fuck it up so fucking royally. The execution is utter fucking shit.
Jorge says Perpetual and Psyker. That makes no sense. I thought Perpetual can't be Psyker. Unless I'm mistaken about this. Malkador the Sigillite was both a Perpetual and a Psyker. He wasn't a high-level Psyker like the Emperor Magnus, but he was still a Psyker, if I remember right.
I know Malkador, everyone knows Malkador was a Psyker.
He was a Perpetual too. Yes.
Malkador. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right, but I'm just confirming. Right, Perpetual. Well, keep in mind Malkador is... Okay, yeah, Malkador is a Perpetual. Yeah, I was just confirming, and I suspect as much. So yeah, with Malkador, I don't know, I can't speak to whether Perpetuals can or can't be Psykers or not. I would say, as far as I'm aware of the lore, that's never been a rule.
I've never heard that either.
I've never heard that Perpetuals can't be Psykers. I've not heard that. That being said, it doesn't mean that, you know, just because I'm not aware of it doesn't mean that that's 100%, you know, the canon lore is that they can or can't be. I just never have heard of it. If you can cite your source and I can look it up, that would be helpful. But without that, all I can say is, as far as I'm aware, Perpetuals can be Psykers.
Science Mile brings up an interesting point, but I have issue at this point. John Grammaticus is a perpetual and has psychic power, but John Grammaticus is such a what's the male version of a Mary Sue? A Gary Stu.
Gary Stu.
Yeah, he is such a Gary Stu character that really, you can't use that argument. I'm sorry.
And real quick, I want to hit on this. Erda Cardian, I don't remember the Primarchs having a mother in the fluff. It was all from the Emperor. Then you are not up to date, my friend. Because in the Saturn IX book of the Siege of Terra series, they added the perpetual character Erda, who was a perpetual psyker who followed the Emperor as one. I guess a funny way to put it is she was a groupie. She was a groupie with lots of knowledge about genetic sequencing, and she was a really smart cookie. And in the Saturn IX book, it's revealed that she contributed her genetics to the Emperor's a blunt way to put it is she watered down his genetics with her own to produce the Primarchs, who are slightly weaker than him. So she's the source of that. And again, I'm not... so that is official in the fluff, and as far as I'm aware, the Saturn IX book is canon. I have not read anywhere or seen anywhere where it was labeled non-canon. I would like it to be, considering how they wrote her.
So I haven't seen where it's written that it's non-canon, but in all the research I've done since then, I have never seen anywhere where it says that it's canon.
Yeah, and to be fair, the reason for that may also be because the book is new. The Saturn IX book, I think was a 2020 book.
Well, at the same time, you would think with something as big as that, a lot of the shit would change and be like, no, Primarch mommy milkers. Mommy,
I love you so much. Okay, I'm gonna yeet you through the fucking warp.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because I quote unquote love you.
And so I think that it's one of those things where it was such a big deal, and it was such a quote unquote win for women in 40k. It really wasn't.
And I don't see how a overly emotional and stupid being like Erda is a win. And think about it. Just really lay out what she did. She knowing what the Primarchs were going to be for, helped the Emperor create them. She contributed her genetics to water their genetics down from the Emperor's. She helped add them to the gestation tubes, and then once the Emperor really laid out for her, and she started having, I guess, formulating an emotional connection to the Primarchs, she then protested to the Emperor that she didn't want them to become warlords, because all of a sudden she was like, oh, I care about them now. Like, in concept, yeah. I was totally down for this, but I've grown attached. And the Emperor was pretty much like, well, guess what? I'm judge, jury, and executioner, and I say I get custody, so fuck off. And she took that about as well as any woman who loses custody. Not well. So she literally opened up a fucking warp portal and yeeted the Primarchs through the warp. And the Emperor, A, didn't kill her for this, and B, it makes the Chaos Gods look like they were just the word victim is wrong here, but victim is a circumstance. They lucked out. And you could argue that Tzeentch, or one of the Chaos Gods, influenced her to do that. But it doesn't, as far as I've read in terms of like the layout of how her story is explained here, it's not laid out like she was influenced. Like she just chose to do this. Because she, again, quote unquote, loved her kids. Enough to throw them through literally hell.
Hell.
I love these children so much. I gotta protect them from their father. How are you gonna do that? I'm gonna throw them through hell with 4 different devils to corrupt and fuck them up. Because I love them, you know? Jesus Christ.
Hmm?
Yeah, there goes my dog. But yeah, Eckhard Accardian, what is the motivation behind getting the Primarch to work? I think I just explained it, so that might have been from before I was explaining it.
It was.
I did like he just said. I did like the writing that comes before. That was Primarch got yeeted by the Big E, fucked over by the Chaos Gods. Yeah, that's what everybody liked. And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with that because it really came off like the Chaos Gods were playing 4D chess because they yeeted them out away from the Emperor. And they also didn't just straight up kill them. They just got them away from him so they would all be influenced by different environments. So they'd all have this massive gap between each of them in terms of their emotional instability, creating... Because if they were all raised by the Emperor would raise them under a strict regimen where they wouldn't formulate what I would call like individualistic personalities, where they would have differing perspectives, where they would have... different emotional responses to things or different interpersonal relationships. They would all be very similar to one another if raised by the Emperor. And by that same very virtue, they would also be less corruptible by chaos because they wouldn't have like life experience to call upon when it came to like how they emotionally responded to certain things or how they viewed certain things, because they would again have been raised by the Emperor in a more, I guess you would call it, self-contained and more directed upbringing, where he would craft them to be the ultimate anti-corruptible beings from chaos. And the Chaos Gods knew that, so when they yeeted them, and they were playing 4D chess in multiple ways, and one of those ways is once they yeeted the Primarchs, they not only were they mutating them physically, but because they were sending them to random locations completely different from one another, they would also not only clash with one another, but their different emotional and intellectual stances on things would not only hamper the Emperor's goals, but would also create an in for them to, well, cause chaos. And the thing is, if the Chaos Gods had just killed the Primarchs outright, we all know that, well, if they killed them outright, the Great Crusade would look very, very fucking different. But they also would have they would have technically prevented the Horus Heresy, which is a great, huge source of chaos for the Chaos Gods. Because the Chaos Gods are fueled not by prayer and worship, though that's still hotly debated on how much of an influence belief and worship to the Chaos Gods fuels them. All I know is, as far as it's explained from what I've seen in the lore, the Chaos Gods are not really as much fueled by prayer and worship and belief. They're fueled by simply the very essence of what they represent in the warp, in the immaterium, being practiced in the materium. So if someone is angry, enraged, and wants to fight, and wants to kill, murder, death, that's fueling Khorne. They don't need to be aware or worship Khorne to fuel him with that. They just simply need to feel that way. Likewise with Tzeentch. If somebody's life has got constant bad luck, or the way they view things one day is completely different from another, or just like the general like life inconsistency and like the changing of ways and the fuckery stuff, that would fuel Tzeentch, whether they were aware of Tzeentch and praying to him or not. Same with Slaanesh, with excess, doing too many drugs, sex, anything in excess would fuel Slaanesh. And Nurgle, death, rot, life, yes, that would fuel them. If they had just killed the Primarchs outright, and the Horus Heresy had been avoided, a huge source of all those things would have also been prevented. A huge, like, I guess you would call it like the Mario Mushroom 1-up thing for the Chaos Gods would have also been avoided. So that's a part of that 4D chess that they played, that I always liked, was they were thinking about it from all these different angles. It's like, hey, if we eat them, but we don't kill them, we just guide them to the right places and craft them in a way of which we can corrupt them later, creating something like the Horus Heresy, we can not only defeat the Emperor, but we can also provide ourselves a massive source of power. So that's always something that's fascinated me, and something that I've always been drawn to with that idea that the Chaos Gods yeeted the Primarchs. The fact that now it's fucking Erda, who is just basically a stupid bitch who supposedly cared about her children, yeeting them, it comes off like the Chaos Gods just got out lucky. Like they just got lucky.
It's one of those things where with the Chaos Gods, it's an instant of they're doing it for self-preservation. Erda is doing it because reasons.
Yeah, it's a huge source of bullshit that they added, and I have no idea why. Like, the logic behind the addition of her character is so piss poor. Why did they shoehorn in that woman then? It makes no sense and takes away brain power from the Chaos Gods. Exactly. Well, that's the thing. There's really no reason to have added Erda that I can think of. There's no good reason for it. And I stand by that. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. The only thing I could think of is like why Erda was added was to provide a source of female Space Marines. It's pretty much it.
Even then, you'd have a hard argument for that one.
Yeah, that's about the only thing I can think of why she was added. And I can think of why adding a female perpetual who contributes her genetics to watering down the Primarchs. I can think of many ways that's a cool idea and can work. But the problem is again, adding in that part of her character where she yeeted the Primarchs for essentially no good reason completely kills any good shit they could have done with such a character.
Yeah.
It went from feeling like an innovation or like an addition to the lore to once you then make her part of that integral moment in the lore, that's a retcon. That's a straight fucking retcon, and it's stupid. Like, it takes away gravitas from the Chaos Gods.
And there are so many cooler things to have been done with her character that, you know, the idea of her, and I wouldn't really call it watering down. I don't think it's so much that. I think it's because the Emperor implanted, in the way I've always looked at it, even without Erda as a description, like, let's look at the Primarchs as clones of the Emperor. Well, it goes back to that old saying, not as good as the original, but I think what, in the way I've always looked at it, is he always isolated a certain part of himself, his ambition, his desire for perfection, his psychic prowess, his need for order and a stick up his ass, his desire for building forts, even when it might not necessarily make sense, his desire to kill, like, a tenth of his army, again, for no reason, his anger, you know. I'm just trying to go through things that kind of makes the Primarchs obvious. I really have a couple good examples, but that's it. But I think it's where he selectively took those and made the Primarchs, and the idea of bringing in Erda, and that's what made them all different, instead of being like mini clones of the Emperor with just different personalities. I think that really fit, and that was a really good idea. It just wasn't executed that well.
Again, it's GW's old song and dance of they are completely incapable of taking a decent idea, or a good idea even, and executing it properly. Like Primaris. Decent idea on the base level, but you need to execute it properly for it to work. And that's where GW constantly fail on almost on every fashion since like the 90s. They have good ideas brought to the table, and then when it comes to, all right, how do we do this idea? So for some reason, the intelligence just seeps out of the room at that point. Just
yeah,
gone. What if that woman became corrupted by the Chaos Gods and get a demon in her to make her doing eating before the Emperor destroyer? The thing is, in the Saturnine book, as far as I have read about her segment in that's not implied. It's implied more that she was the one who willfully did it on her own. So if they were to add it in another book later down the road, like, oh, it actually turns out she was influenced and corrupted by chaos, it would feel like to me like they're covering their asses. It's like, oh shit, we got called out on this stupid writing. Let's fix it in hindsight. If they did that though, though I would know why they were doing it, I know they would only be doing it because they thought it's some kind of a win after the fact. I would say that would help soften the blow that is the Erda character, but I still think there's so many other small things about that whole situation that still sucks. Personally.
Yeah.
Okay, so super chats. Okay, so there's only 2 left, I believe. I know they didn't exist at the time, but the Blood Ravens would just steal the city while the people were asleep, and they would go up on the ground. And they would certainly pillage the place. It's like, hey, is that nailed down? No, all right, mine. Is that nailed down? Yes. All right, also mine. So if it's only nailed down, I got this. This is mine. Let's see. Joseph Corwin donated $3. Is Big E's sperm still viable, or has he been sterilized by his chair? These are the hard-hitting questions. I don't know. Ludus?
I'm sorry, what was the question? I gotta ask something.
Is Big E's sperm still viable, or has he been sterilized by his chair?
He's a goddamn skeleton.
I would say if he has his dick, it's not very viable.
Since he is a skeleton and that is cartilage and muscle, no.
Well, he's not just a skeleton. He's still got some flesh and organs and stuff.
Hold on. I'm gonna look up a picture real quick.
Next, and the latest super chat. Thank you for Joseph Corman again. $3. Do lady space marines lactate? Asking for a friend.
They don't exist, so they can't lactate.
Yeah, I don't know. Your fanfiction there will please you as it will.
If you shit your pants in the woods, is anyone around to smell it?
These are the questions.
So I don't see any flesh on him, so I'm gonna go ahead and say no.
Well, which image are you going off of? There's several.
I've looked off of a couple of where he's interred on the golden throne. He has a bunch of tubes hooked up to. What the fuck is this?
Let's see. Well, the old photo of him shows. Yeah, he isn't just a skeleton. He's still actually got flesh and shit. Yeah, there's plenty of images showing him with flesh and organs and stuff.
I'm still gonna say no.
Very, very little in regard to organs and flesh and shit, but there's still some left.
I am still gonna say no. So wait, what? Why? So there are a couple of people. Oh, that's hilarious. So as you know, Asmogan, I am a on and off fan of Death Battle. And people have put up like on here some Death Battle-esque wallpapers. And I just want to know what you would think of some of these matchups. I don't know who that is. Superman versus the God Emperor.
I would probably give it to the God Emperor. Because the thing is, Superman was always weak to magic, and technically the psychic stuff is, in a way, magic. So
yeah, I could go with that. I didn't see this one, but this one is hilarious. Sailor Moon versus the God Emperor.
I'd give it to the God Emperor hands down, and I regret to see what she would look like after the fact.
Darkseid versus the God Emperor.
Darkseid.
This one I would actually kind of fall under. I'd probably give it to the God Emperor. Darkseid is a bitch to kill, but a lot of his bullshittery, the Emperor has equal, if not better, bullshittery. So,
yeah.
And here's the two that I thought were funny, and I wanted to say for last. God Emperor versus Frieza.
That's a question.
I know. Oh no, that's not even the best one. God Emperor versus Juggernaut from X-Men.
Oh, that one's a joke for sure. I'm the Juggernaut, bitch. Nuked from reality. Sorry, what were you again?
he just Thanos snaps.
Oh yeah, God Emperor has the Thanos snap, but he has it whenever he fucking wants. He doesn't need some fancy
Pretty much.
gauntlet with a bunch of stones. But with that topic being brought up, I think we can end it here. And thanks everybody who joined the stream. Thank you so much to Arch for joining us and hanging out with us. Hope he has a great day at work. And yeah, we had a great time. It was very fun to pick his brain about some stuff. And,
it was really fun, and it was really fun going down like how the different legions would have handled monarchy with Arch. That was, I'm not gonna lie, that was kind of like the highlight of my fucking month at this point.
And yeah, this was great. But thanks so much, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Make sure to check out Arch's channel. Make sure to check my stuff out. Check Ludus's stuff out. I will. I got to do it after the fact now. I will link everybody's channel. Obviously, mine is this one. Just click on my icon.
I'll link everyone's channel except for the one you're currently watching.
Yes, just check the more out that stuff out. But I'll as soon as the stream's over, I'm gonna put a pinned comment up for Arch's and Ludus's stuff. But yeah, other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.
Have a good one, guys. Oh.